Aviel, where are you these days? And tell me how's the new year treating you?
Thank you. I'm located in Tel Aviv. New Year is nice. Winter is not as bad as this year. It's quite warm, and it's soon the time to start growing our algae outdoors. So weather is treating us nice, both personally and for the company.
What's the weather generally these days in Tel Aviv, Israel?
Around 20, 25 degrees, something like that. Very
Fantastic.
pleasant temperature.
Very
Very sunny.
pleasant. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's try to deep dive a little bit around Ingrediome and your story, starting in Ingrediome. If you can talk about your origin to the fit that you found in the market, means like the gap in the market, and now what are your current takeaways?
Yes, of course. So when Michael and I started thinking about how we can improve the way humanity is making food, we were looking at the existing solutions that were out there. At that time, the plant-based meat was already on the rise, but Michael, as a financial person, saw the reports behind the scenes of these plant-based companies, and he saw something that was not matching the overall enthusiasm that was out there in the public. We understood that there is some challenge or an impasse in this alternative meat industry that was not existing in the same way in the alternative milk or dairy industry that kept growing to very nice numbers. And what we did, we tried sampling products out there in the market and understanding their qualities and properties, and we saw that there is not this very convincing solution out there. So we try to think how we can break down meat to the sum of its components and try to rebuild it like the dairy industry, the alternative dairy industry has did, using recombinant proteins or proteins that were made in microorganisms. We needed to learn what are the major proteins that are found in meat and what is their culinary role. We didn't make meat to go for a heart transplant. We just wanted to have something that is pleasant for eating. And we learn about these groups of proteins that are basically determining the quality of meat as food, and decided to target them for production in a recombinant way. So basically to produce them in microorganism as a carbon copy of the animal counterpart. But then we had a second challenge. Unlike dairy, where proteins in milk are found in fairly low inclusions, meat had a lot of proteins. And we understood immediately that the economics of it wouldn't work with the traditional precision fermentation techniques that was abundant in the food tech industry. So we needed to think of a way that would use a low-cost cultivation, something that would potentially be used only with agricultural techniques to produce those proteins, and understood that algae farming could be a solution for us. Only farmers can grow it. So basically, you can imagine people with sandals instead of PhDs in a clean facility making our food. This can go at almost any scale very quickly. And algae already contain a lot of protein, so they're an excellent platform to get protein if this is what you're after. And with this, we started Ingrediome. Our goal was to get to price parity with the traditional meat products. And today, we even surpassed our initial goal, and we understand we can even cut the cost by 10 or 20%, fairly close to the beginning of production. So not something like in 10 years, but rather a year or two into production, we believe we will be able to reduce the cost of production for meat by 10 or 20%. And I'm talking average market meat, not something that is considered very premium. And I think this is more or less how Ingrediome was incepted.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I just go to the last leg of that question. How do you see the current state of the market now and versus when you started?
So yeah, the market is taking a huge blow. Paul Bronson, our director and the head of IndieBio San Francisco, said we were probably the last meat company that got funded because of this blow. We see meat companies, unfortunately, alternative meat companies, unfortunately, shutting down or reducing the size of their business. But also in parallel, what we see is people are still willing to try, and this is very confusing. People are willing to try. I see it in Israel, I see it in Europe, I see it in the United States. There are always new products out there in the market, and people are trying them. They're actually giving it a go, although they had many disappointments. So it doesn't seem like the market is not willing or not interested in these alternatives, like many of the big journals are proposing, rather that there has not been found a fit to the market. And what we think here is that we can bring this difference, because when we take our prototypes to meat companies, we heard it already 2 or 3 times from the high personnel in the company, like the CEO, the CTO, and even sometimes the simple facility worker that come and pass for a tasting. They think the quality and the taste of the meat we bring is better than what they actually can produce today industrially. So we think we can match the consumer expectations and get to those very large segment of people who are willing to try something different, but just haven't found it yet.
No, beautiful. And I think that's our analysis also. I think overall market is still growing. Customers are still looking for solutions. And personally, I think the thing needs to move, and I think you are trying to spearhead around that, is to make alternatives as mainstream. Because in your case, you're actually mimicking the same animal proteins, and if you package it well, it is considered to be meat. Do you see yourself kind of an alternative technology stack to cellular agriculture? So, what cellular agriculture actually thought of doing it by doing cell cultivation, which is a very expensive affair, and the technology was coming more from stem cells and all that. This provides a better alternative that you can do animal proteins at scale, which also precision fermentation, steel tank bioreactors also cannot provide. So, do you see that alternative that you are trying to provide what initially cultivated meat industry promised?
Yes, absolutely. So we haven't talked about it, but by my technical training was I hold a PhD in neurobiology. And in 2012, at the beginning of my PhD, I was actually working with human embryonic stem cells and learned about the immense difficulty of replicating those cells in the lab. I really understood how it is challenging and almost impossible to get it to a very large scale with existing technologies. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but just not so soon. And what we understood is we are trying to emulate meat for food and not for medicine. So we are not trying to transplant the heart where we need to copy everything that needs to be functional for this reason. We just want to have food. So we don't care about those 10,000 proteins that are normally found in meat and have nothing to do with our experience of eating it. So we just targeted the ones that are important for food. And by this, we created an emulation to what cultured meat is doing, but at a far, far lower cost. I'll just give you a price reference or a cost reference
Yep,
for
yep.
our bioreactors. So for example, for us to establish a 50,000 liter bioreactor that is outdoor and can be operated by less than one person, we need to invest a few $1,000s. A similar size of bioreactor for cultured meat would already cost tens, if not hundreds of millions.
Yeah, yeah. And on that very specific point, I'm jumping on to another question, which I thought I'll ask later. But do you think there is a twofold environmental impact? One is that reducing the reliance on animals for proteins and for food, but the other thing that you actually talked about was the algae cultivation or cyanobacteria cultivation that you do it is also sequester carbon. Talk a bit about your environmental impact, how you see it. Yeah, and am I saying the right thing?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So not only that we are diverging the carbon's emission that would be made if people eat our products compared to the traditional meat, also in the process of producing this meat, we are capturing quite a lot of CO2 during the process. So for every kilo of algae, we capture about 1.8 kilograms of CO2, and it translates to a bit more in our finished meat product. So even our process is already contributing to mitigating climate change.
No, perfect. And that's what I was, when we were looking at either microalgae solutions or solutions like yours, it's a twofold impact. One is the emission avoidance or emission reduction. The other thing is also decarbonization, creating kind of carbon sinks using microalgae. So I think it's a very interesting way to look at it. And specifically with precision fermentation, steel tank bioreactors, you still need a lot of sugar cane. So you are in the cycle of actually have, yes, you are avoiding the environmental impact from animals, which is huge, but you're still using that. And in your case, you are actually add carbon dioxide reduction in that way. So fantastic. Would you like to talk or discuss a bit about your most prominent milestones and accomplishment since you started?
Absolutely. So I'll take two milestones from the recent period, which I think demonstrate how we can make an effect on the market. So the first one, in the past months or in the past 6 months, we have been working with a leading meat company that has never done anything in the meat alternative space. They have never found something to be relevant for them to present to their client. They are a pure meat company. They have tasted nothing but it. And we have signed an agreement with them and started co-development of meat product. And the reason we got them excited is because finally they were able to be a better version of themselves. They don't have to use slaughter meat to make their products, but they feel they have made no compromise at all. Actually, they got so excited about what we're doing that they think it's even better than their meat. And the value it brought to Ingrediome is their limitless help. They have exposed us to their processes, to the materials they use, to the market understanding, and this has has allowed us to make a huge leap in the understanding of how we commercialize. The second milestone is about us being actually able to deliver. We have just secured a capacity of 200,000 liters to grow our algae, which we are going to basically start next week. Of course, we'll start smaller at a few thousand liter scales, but even by the end of next quarter, we believe we will already be at a scale of tens of thousands of liters, showing how simple it is to grow our meat. We believe that in a year time, we even may be able to show that it's simpler than growing cows or animals, which although exists at a very large scale today, does not come without hurdles.
I think in a short span of time with limited amount of capital, you have achieved quite a lot. One thing that I want to touch base, I think indirectly I asked and you have answered it, is around, so do you see your solution to go as meat products? Or do you see as an alternative meat plant-based? How you will classify in general your product stack as?
We want to see it classified as a meat product. For example, with the meat company we are working with, what they're going to do, they're going to take the same shelf space they have for the meat products, so they're going to change nothing in the shelf space. They are going to actually remove 3 to 5 meat products they are currently selling today and replace them with the same products that will be made from our meat. And this is what we want to see. This is the kind of transformation we want to see in the market. We aspirate not to fight with those meat companies. They have no agenda of using animals. They just have the interest, like any company, to make money. If we can offer them a solution that is simple, that is, let's say, plug and play, they have to change nothing in their factories. They don't have to change anything in their production process, but taking this raw meat that we offer them, we think we're going to see the change in the market, the acceleration, much faster, because these companies already have a base of clients that is consuming meat today and is trusting them. So if we can convince these companies to go to their clients and tell them you're having the same or even better product than what we previously was able to offer you, we think we can see a significant acceleration in the transition of meat consumption.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think this can be game changer as we discuss about that. This is this can actually achieve the dream that cell agriculture thought of achieving, providing meat to in a meatless way with the same animal proteins, but you're doing it completely differently, completely different cost benefit in terms of as well as carbon reduction also by having this approach. Um, I want to actually ask you, so since you started this and maybe in your previous journey also when you were building somewhat in a very similar space with a molecular farming startup and all, did you encounter any difficulties? Like, what's your biggest lesson that you have learned since you actually start building companies, and specifically with Ingrediome, if you want to mention anything?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson is always listen to the client. Be very, very careful about the assumptions we make about clients. And the second thing is understanding that regulatory barriers cannot be overcome. And I'll specify. When we built the previous company, we had a very promising solution in the molecular farming space. We were using a plant that grew at a massive scale in the United States, and we were able to bring yields that were not seen before in the, let's say, in the literature. But when we came with this solution to the FDA, they were very upset and actually thought this is something that cannot take place on the land of the USA, and basically affecting the entire economic and ability to scale this solution. So when we founded Ingrediome, actually before founding Ingrediome, we already had with us an advisor that was serving 30 years at the FDA and was actually reviewing these GRAS notices and these kind of applications, and asked him about every step of the way about the technology. And we made very important tweaks to our technology to match the regulatory requirement at every step. The second thing about the clients, we played with several ideas about how we can advance the alternative meat market. And some ideas that were out there was promoted by big bodies like the GFI, indicating that the market is currently looking for a specific solution. But when we came to take to immediately to the potential clients, at that time it was cultured meat companies, we understood that although they have a problem with it, they are not looking to buy it from us or any other company. They were going to solve it themselves. Or we went to other companies and they did not see it actually even as a problem, although for us it was a very, very clear issue, and even consumer indications were to their direction. So we needed to make sure all along we are aligned with what our consumers also see as their problem and not what we see as their problem. And we keep doing this even now. This is why at very early days, we went to talk with actual meat companies to see what they think about us and if they believe that we can solve their problems. And we keep getting their input about what's interesting for them and what's not. And by this, I think we advance very quickly and we use our capital very efficiently, as we don't spend funds on things that are not relevant for our potential customers.
Superb. Um, Coming back to our relationship with Beyond Impact with me also, and since we actually started doing interaction, has this relationship benefited you? And how was your experience working with Beyond Impact, and any kind of support that you got from Beyond Impact that you want to actually touch base upon?
Yeah, so the relationship was very comfortable since the early days. It was not like because the yes was so quick. It was just very honest conversations. We always knew when we were standing. And along the way, we developed, I think, a personal relationship that is based on trust, which allowed both sides to kind of believe what the other part was saying. And we made some adjustments along the way about things within the company or within the way we operated and did things. It was possible just because we had this very simple communication, both with you, Sagar, and with Hannah, that is living just like maybe 10 or 15 kilometers away from where I am just right now. And throughout this year, you and the fund is, oh, not year, time has passed, questions, through these last 2 years, we've been directed and pointed to many opportunities like conferences, uh, business and technological advice, and just had a year to talk and ask questions about where things are going. And this was definitely very, very helpful for us and allowed us also to keep calm and focus on doing what we should do.
Awesome. I think you should hang out more with Hannah and probably convince her to eat some animal proteins, which is not coming from animals. I would be, I really want her to try. Yeah, so last few questions. So what are your aims for your company now, as you look ahead in 2025? And yeah, I think where things are progressing now. What are you focusing on?
Yeah, so I think 2025 is the year when we want to see the shift between the R&D stage of the company towards the pre-production. So in 2025, we plan on submitting our GRAS notice to the FDA and scaling our operations, starting to show a serious ability to produce. We already have some of the largest food companies out there very interested in what we are doing, waiting to see the queue that we are able to produce at scale. These companies have been burned in the past from interesting technologies that were not able to scale. So what we understand at this point is we have to prove that we can get to the market because the regulatory pathway is open, and we have to show it that we are able to scale easy, fast, and almost everywhere around the globe. So these are our two main goals for 2025.
Awesome, awesome. I'll ask one personal question that I generally ask people, and I personally like it. Um, are you reading these days any book or any podcast that you're listening to that you want to tell the world
Oh
in some
yes,
ways?
but this this would not be a food tech podcast. Yes, I'm a father of two young children, and having small children is kind of a rebirth to the person you are as an adult. You have to relive your entire childhood and reevaluate your entire way of coping with life. So I'm listening to a podcast called Good Inside that is teaching about how
Interesting.
to be a better parent. Very interesting what I learned from this podcast, how to be a better parent for my own children, as I actually learned, I think, the most efficient way how to be a better manager. Because being an
Yeah.
empathic and being able to communicate messages in a constructive way, not in a destructive way that may hurt confidence of people, is something you both need to use at home and at work. So by learning to be a better parent, I actually feel the same lessons are being applied at work, and I see the results. So it's a very funny way of advancing as a manager and a parent at the same time.
Oh, I think this is the best answer or the best question I would say that I asked you, because the amount of kindness that you learn to actually interact with a kid, with a baby is of an experience of its own kind. And please, I would love to listen to that podcast also on the site, so I'll ask you the link later on.